Hola, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos al Entre, nous de Sattwa. Hoy día tengo un invitado muy especial. Él es un profesor, es un maestro de renombre mundial, Acharya, de conocimientos védicos, que incluye el yoga, ayurveda, vedanta y yoitisha. Ha recibido prestigiosos premios. Es autor de numerosos libros que han sido traducidos a varios idiomas y sus traducciones y las interpretaciones de Vamadeva de las antiguas enseñanzas védicas han sido aclamadas tanto en los círculos espirituales como en los círculos académicos. Ha trabajado extensamente enseñando, escribiendo, dando conferencias, conduciendo investigaciones y ayudando a establecer escuelas y asociaciones relacionadas con las enseñanzas védicas. Además, escribe con regularidad para varias publicaciones y las redes sociales sobre temas educativos y la importancia del conocimiento védico para el mundo entero, lo que le ha proporcionado un vasto y diverso número de lectores y seguidores a lo largo de los años. Ha sido uno de los principales pioneros en la introducción de la medicina ayurvédica en el mundo occidental, así como de la yotisha, que es la astrología védica, y también sobre los aspectos más profundos del yoga y el vedanta. Y también tuve la honra de tenerlo como maestro a él y a su esposa Shambhavi en mi formación en el Centro Chopra en meditación del sonido primordial. Es un gusto, y más que un gusto, es un honor presentar al doctor David Frawley, también llamado Pandit Vamadeva Shastri. Vamadeva, thank you very much for being here. It's really, really an honor to have you here. I still think that it's a dream come true for me. And I'm going to let you know more or less what I said in Spanish, right? For you to know how I did the introduction. He is a world-renowned teacher, Acharya, of Vedic knowledge, including yoga, Ayurveda, Vedanta, and Jyotish. He has received prestigious awards, and he is the author of numerous books. Vamadeva translations and interpretations of ancient Vedic teachings have been acclaimed in both spiritual and academic circles. He has worked extensively teaching, writing, lecturing, conducting, researching, and helping to establish schools and associations in related Vedic fields for more than 3 decades. And you also are the director of the American Institute of Vedic Studies. Furthermore, he writes regularly for various publications on social media on educational topics and the importance of Vedic knowledge for the whole world, which has provided him with a vast and diverse numbers of readers and followers. Over the years, he has become one of the main pioneers in introducing Ayurvedic medicine to the Western world, as well as the Jyotisha, Vedic astrology, and the deepest aspects of yoga and Vedanta. And I had the honor of having him as a teacher with his beautiful wife, right, in my training as primordial sound meditation instructor at the Chopra Center. And then I introduce you as Dr. David Frawley, also called Pandit Vamadeva Shastri. It's an honor, Vamadeva.
Namaste. Very good to be with you, Laura. I'm very happy to have this interview with our friends and students in Chile and throughout the world. And it is my honor to be with you and to share the Vedic knowledge and to hopefully bring in some deeper communication and understanding in the challenges that we have going on in the world today. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you, Vamadeva. My first question. I have a very good friend, and she is She reads everything that you write. And when I knew that I was going to interview you, I asked her, I said, what will you ask Vamadeva if you had him in front? And she said, how was it that Ayurveda, psychology, and the Vedas studies found you? What made you dedicate your life to this?
Yes, that's a not uncommon question. It goes all the way back to the late 60s. I was born in 1950. And my connection largely with the yoga and the yoga teachers at that time. There were a number of movements, Paramahansa Yogananda's teachings, for example. We had access to these teachings probably for the first generation in the United States. And I had a kind of philosophical and psychological bent of mind. And I also had an interest in ancient cultures and traditions worldwide. So I knew there were mysteries and teachings there. And I also wanted a deeper connection to the tradition. So besides the available teachers, I also looked into some of the traditional teachings coming out of India, and some of the gurus had not actually traveled to the West, like Sri Aurobindo, Ramana Maharshi. I was able to come into contact with and correspond with Anandamayi Ma, a great woman yogini of India, and M.P. Pandit, who was the secretary of the Aurobindo ashram, came to the United States. This was in the 70s. And I introduced my studies to him, and he said that he would start publishing that in India for me, which he did. And then I began to travel to India, and all along I had an interest in nature, herbs, healing, as well as in yoga, Vedanta, philosophy, psychology. So that brought me into contact with the Ayurvedic medicine. And luckily I came to a place in New Mexico which had the only Ayurvedic program. And I also came into contact with Ayurvedic teachers in India. And also I had an interest in astronomy, Jyotish, ever since I was young. Even now I know I can identify more than 200 deep sky objects simply with a laser pointer on a telescope. So that was another one of my interests, and they all coalesced together. And I never had a plan. Some people say, why are you studying all these different things? I would say, I don't know, but somehow they all came together. And then over time, I had various coincidental connections, even with Deepak, even with publishers, many people in India. And I was one of the first people who tried to bring these teachings, which were essentially the deeper yoga practices, Vedanta, Ayurveda, Jyotish. I visited so many ashrams in America and was one of the first people to emphasize Ayurveda back in the 80s and 90s. And then also began traveling globally, doing this work in Europe, doing this work in South America, and also in India, because in India was, for them, it was a phenomenon to see somebody from the West teaching these things and espousing these things. So that gave me contact to many groups, teachers throughout India over the years. Most of the great gurus, ashrams, centers, temples I came into contact with in India as well as in the United States. And then I found that these teachings, of course, reflected one another. Yoga is yoga psychology, yogic healing is Ayurveda, yoga philosophy is Vedanta, Ayurvedic psychology is yoga and Vedanta, Ayurvedic astrology is Jyotish. So they all crossed over, and they had similar languages, whether it was doshas or gunas or koshas or Atman, Brahman, philosophy, all these different things. So it gradually coalesced and came together. And this gave me a kind of dual role, one taking the Vedic teachings to the West, which was to one audience, and the other was returning the Vedic teachings to India, which was a different audience and often a different language or terminology that was used. And I got to meet many important people in India. Also, even the Prime Minister, I had met him from Narendra Modi. I'd met him more than 20 years ago, so knew him even then. And many of the gurus who had come through came to the West, Amritanandamayi and so forth, I had come into contact on the Indian situation as well. So it gradually unfolded, never had a plan, never had a business plan, and never really knew what I was doing. I wrote one book at a time, did different things. And sometimes I went into subjects like ancient history that seemed not terribly of great interest or of great financial value. I did that as well, bringing out the Vedic view, and then gradually starting my own center, publications, and just continuing the work every day, year after year, watching it unfold and following the movement of nature, following my own lifestyle, meditation, and over time it just simply unfolded in its own way. Hariom.
No, that's wonderful, Vamadeva. Vamadeva, could you talk about planetary karma? What do we have to work on with the global pandemic, and how these affect our mental state? What advice do you give in relation to the increase of depression, anxiety, and fears?
Yes, it's a very important issue. We are at a very crucial time in humanity. I had written more than 10 years ago that 2020 would mark what I called a new time of troubles for humanity, with issues relative to health, ecology, psychology, population, so many things based upon certain astrological things that we saw. Yeah. I brought that out again at the end of 2019, but I was surprised in 2020 how quickly everything moved. And of course, every century has its challenges. In fact, the first 20 years of the 20th century were even more difficult with the major world wars and other things than what we have experienced so far. So collective karma is going on. And we also have major technological changes. I mean, we are here because of that technology right now. And this technology benefits us in many ways, but it also poses certain challenges. And we see the breakdown of the organic basis of life, disruption of our ecosystems, more and more kind of urban existence that is more electrical than pranic, artificial food, artificial behavior, breakdown of the family system, breakdown of communities, lack of connection with nature. And I'm not saying the technology is bad. These are movements that are going on, but they also expose us to many more media and electronic influences, which are artificial in nature. In the past, people had more connection with nature. They looked at the skies. The farmer plowed or dug the earth. There was a certain sense of connection with life as a whole. Now we have the technology. And that technology has many benefits, but the side effect is it's artificial. And all the electronic influences can disturb our prana and disturb our minds. And on top of that, we have a medical system that is more progressively drug-oriented and even treating psychological issues as chemical imbalances in the brain. And I'm not saying it's not useful, particularly in acute conditions, particularly in cases when intervention is needed. It's probably essential and it has many values. But as a general way of sustaining physical and psychological well-being, it has its limitations, side effects of drugs, addictions to drugs, disruptions to the prana, and all of that. And so what's happened is in that context of our more artificial way of life, there's also been some weakening of what we can say is our physical and our psychological immunity. Physical immunity because we're not getting good food, air, water, we're not getting a lot of prana, we're not getting good rest, sleep, peace of mind, and also psychological immunity. We're now, on the good side, we can communicate with everybody.
Yes.
On the bad side, we have every negative view that we can see, and we can also have a disturbing technology that is moving at us regularly. There's also good sides to technology. Again, I'm not trying to portray it one way or the other, but it crosses a certain stress on us physically and psychologically. Now, this pandemic is also connected to the technology in that you can now spread a disease globally in a few days via the airports and via other factors, just as we can even spread the news immediately. And so that has come into play. And then with our new technology, we've been looking at it in a technological way. Deal with it with the vaccine, deal with it with chemistry. I'm not saying that's not useful, but we have to remember at the end of the day, we are human beings, living organisms, spiritual beings. We have a mind and a consciousness. We have our karma, our responsibility. And so we must keep that in mind as well. We must live in harmony with nature and with our own nature. So even before this pandemic, we have been seeing an increase in psychological issues, an epidemic of depression, particularly in older people, but in actually all age groups. All these attention problems in children because they're being extensively stimulated all the time. So they don't develop a power of attention, which means you don't develop any real learning or memory. And then with all the medications, for example, older people will be taking 10 to 15 different medications every single day as a normal thing. And of course, some have side effects, some prove to be ineffective over time. Of course, medicine must be evolving both physically and psychologically. But in the process, we see that we're kind of losing control of our own health and well-being. And there's a lot of malaise in the society. Other factors are coming in. Technology is changing, which means jobs are changing. Even jobs are disappearing. And then after a certain age, then you have to learn a new technology, a new skill, a new way of relating. Jobs don't last very long. Relationships are breaking down. There's not so much a need for families anymore, so the number of children is going down. Urban existence is there. And so we've had all these problems coming up, and they're going to be tending to increase because, of course, the technology is going to continue to develop. So we need to develop an intelligence and a consciousness to deal with the technology. And that is more than information and technology. That is where yoga and Ayurveda help us.
Yes.
Because in the end, we can use drugs and things as a palliative measure, but they can't run our lives. We have to have our own independent power of decision, direct experience, original thinking. So we have this physical pandemic. It's also unusual in that it's going after certain parts of the population, elderly, people with cardiovascular conditions to begin with, overweight, other things. But it's spreading rapidly, easily. Many people don't come down with significant symptoms, but enough to cause the general malaise and danger and need for special treatment. And even lockdowns. Lockdowns also have side effects in that when you're locked in your home, you don't have good air. When you're breathing through a mask, you're not getting in good prana. And I'm not saying that these things are not necessary, but they may have side effects. And so here too, Ayurveda, yoga, pranayama, meditation can help us deal with the side effects as well as help us build the immunity and inner strength to deal with this pandemic. Hari Om.
Yeah, you're right, Vamadeva. I agree totally with you that all those things are happening. It's like we forgot about the basic things, like you said, food, rest, nature. We don't go anymore to nature. We don't have time. That's the problem now also. We don't have time, right? We think that we don't have time. And when we realize that we had all the time in the world. It's late. It's too late, right? And no, it's amazing what's going on in the world right now. Then Vamadeva, do you believe that the aforementioned will become the new pandemic?
Well, I would say this. We do have a kind of psychological counterpart to the pandemic that is going on, which again is an increase of some of the influences we've already had, like depression, anxiety. There's so much uncertainty. And even people who do not have the physical issues of the pandemic to deal with, it may be in their friends and family, but even more so, economic uncertainty is there, which is very important for human well-being, uncertainty about the future overall, not being able to work, having the children at home, having various theories out there claiming there's a lot of doom and gloom along with that. And uncertainty, is this going to go away as one blip in the 21st century, or does it represent new challenges of the century or other potential issues there? And then we also then have a kind of, as you say, we're not connected to nature. We're not spiritually grounded, as it were. We're not taught how to understand and control our own minds. And so our minds are often out of control. We take medications, these sedate us, but they don't bring us inner peace. So obviously there is a major psychological challenge or even spiritual challenge going along with the health challenges today, which are of course also body, mind, and environment. And in fact, I sometimes tell people very simply, we cannot have our own immunity, strengthen our own immunity as individuals or as a species if we've disrupted the biosphere, the integrity of nature, and the planetary immunity, which is the circulation of the air, the waters, the protection of the ecosystems. So there are definite challenges coming for the future. At the same time, we do have access to knowledge systems, for example, meditation traditions of various types, traditional medicine of various types, natural healing, new innovations in healing, psychology, herbs, and other factors. So there is that positive side. We do have better communication and sharing that is there. But now too, if you're not actually seeing people face to face, it's hard to get the same response via a screen involved. So it is a new challenge, and we do need to bear it in mind. And we have had historically, of course, mass movements emotionally. What is a war? A war, then World War I, World War II. You also had mass emotions and nationalism, various ideologies, fascism, communism, where people had their minds kind of carried away and they got involved in such activities. So it is possible that these mass movements may affect us today. At the same time, having better communication, we can perhaps avoid them, but challenges are there. So I would say the psychology is a new challenge. I wouldn't want to call it a pandemic, but it is definitely something that can be shared and transmitted, and we need to take it seriously.
Wonderful, yes. Can you please talk about Ayurveda and yoga, explaining the true meaning and how people can use these millenary science these days?
Yes, well, you see, this is very important, and it often requires a change of language, terminology, and even thought. So let us look at modern medicine and how it views us. Modern medicine has made tremendous gains in various ways, whether it's controlling pain, whether it's magical surgery, like what's done for the eyes and all of that, whether it is antibiotics, all of that. But what is its view of the human being? The view of the human being is basically two things: structure of the body, and two is chemistry. Life is defined in terms of chemistry, And there's not a clear idea even as to where life begins. Is it in the virus? Is it in the bacteria? And one case, and where is it alive? And then in the human being, or we say life is chemistry in the brain, but what does that mean? See, where is the person? Where is the self? Where is the mind? Where is the being? Where are you in all of that? If you are just chemistry, who are you? Are you just, that means you can change who you are by changing your chemistry. But is that really so? So Ayurveda and yoga say, yes, there is chemistry. There's chemistry not only at a technical level. There's chemical influences in the food we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the sensory impressions we take in. But more than that, there are certain primary forces, or I would say holistic energies or entities behind the body. For example, prana is an independent life force apart from living beings. Living beings are manifestations of prana. But prana is not limited to chemistry. And prana is also in nature an evolving force on earth. But our physical prana is connected to a psychological prana, connected to the prana of nature, connected to the prana of the universe. Prana has its own intelligence. It is like a being you can talk to. So there is this master force of prana behind how the body and mind work. And then the mind itself is something more than the brain or brain chemistry. The mind is a power of awareness at a certain level. And the mind in the Vedic thought, for example, we've said the prana doesn't die. Prana is an evolving force. It moves on in the subtle body. Mind also, in essence, doesn't die. Its core patterns or karmas remain, moving on to another birth. So mind as an overall power is also regulating the body as a whole. And that's why our state of mind, our emotions, our sensations, etc., affect so dramatically our health and well-being. And then finally, we have an inner self. Yoga calls it Atman or Purusha, a higher consciousness or pure consciousness that is beyond even body and mind. It is even beyond birth and death. It is beyond time, space, and karma. You have an inner being. You have a karmic purpose in life. You have many lives, many births, and many bodies, different mind forms in many worlds. You are a universal or cosmic being connected to the universe as a whole. You are not just a discrete collection of chemicals. You are a mirror or a reflection of the entire universe. You hold the entire universe in the core of your being in what is called the spiritual heart or hridaya. So this means that we can also work on ourselves through these primary forces. You can heal the body through prana. There's prana in food. There's prana, particularly food grown in nature, cooked fresh. There's prana in herbs. There's not prana in chemicals per se, although chemicals, drugs can change how the prana works. There's prana in the air. There's prana in the sensory impressions. Look at the beautiful sky, the clouds, the ocean, the water. It raises your energy level. It makes you feel happy, harmonious, and it helps integrate your own organic systems, eating, breathing, thinking, seeing, all of that. And we can also access prana through pranayama, through meditation, through sensory activity of various types, contemplation of nature. We can access prana through space. So there are ways of these deeper levels of connection. Mind, we can change how we think. We can change our attitudes, our beliefs. We can change how we relate to emotions. Sometimes I tell students that we will let people into our minds that we would never let into our homes, which is worse, which is worse. And we don't analyze our emotions. We can spend a whole day worrying, fearful, anxious, and not consider that we're feeding that negative emotion. We can also question those emotions and say, look, yes, there are challenges, but the way to challenge it is through clarity, peace, calm, and awareness. If you're in a crisis and you panic, it's not going to help you with the crisis at all. So it behooves us in difficult situations to be more cool, calm, and collected. You respond, okay. You say, oh yes, there is a danger. Danger is present, but you don't have to then panic or fear, or then get a bunch of fearful people along with you. We have to move on that level. So there's a whole understanding of the mind directly through even pranayama helps, but also right use of the senses, mantra, meditation, cultivating things like compassion and devotion or fearlessness rather than just getting caught up in worry, anxiety, fear, anger. We can work with these forces. They're like forces of nature, like fire and water. If it's hot, you put a coat on. You don't just, if it's hot, if it's cold, you put a coat on. You don't just endure the cold. So too, if you have fiery emotions, you have to learn how to cool them down in the process. And then connect to your inner self. Our inner being is one with the entire universe. You are not just a set of quantities. You are not just a name, a form, a number, a job, a social appearance. You are an eternal universal being, a point of pure consciousness. You have an inner being, an inner awareness, an eternal value, a dharma, a purpose in existence. You are here to bring more light and awareness into the universe. We all need our, well-being, prosperity outwardly, certainly, but we have another purpose as well. So yoga and Ayurveda bring in this higher language. And Ayurveda then also teaches us how prana creates different constitutional types within us, doshas, vata, pitta, kapha. These are manifestations of prana relative to the 5 elements, and how we can master our constitution and our energy. I mean, after all, science says we're mainly energy, but energy is more than chemistry. And energy is connected to information, thought, and intelligence. We need to move along those lines as well. And so yoga and Ayurveda are a way of right values, right living, right principles. And they teach you, in fact, sometimes people say to you, oh, isn't this too complex? I have to worry about the herbs I take. I have to worry about how I breathe. I have to worry about the kind of exercise that I'm doing. I have to worry about what I'm bringing in through my senses. And my response is very simple. It's this. You're doing these things anyway. You are eating, breathing, sleeping, exercising, taking medicine, so many things. Recreation, so many things. Why not do these with consciousness and with the healing power rather than just do them haphazardly or according to the influences of the moment? Because these things have a consequence. How you breathe has a consequence. If you say breathing doesn't matter how you breathe, then try not breathing and see how long you last. What you eat has a consequence, we all know. So yoga and Ayurveda give us the tools to understand how nature works, how our own nature works, and how we can adjust this accordingly relative to the forces in our environment, whether it's heat and cold, dampness and dryness, whether it's daily changes, our sleeping patterns, seasonal changes, stage of life, aging process, or in the case of childbirth, pregnancy, all of this. There are forces there that they teach us how to deal with this. And we do say you do need modern medicine in acute conditions, injuries, extreme pain, etc. We're not saying dispense with that. But be careful, because how you live is your most important medicine. How you think, what you do. This is what you're doing all the time, the therapy you do once in a while. If you're going the wrong direction most of the time, then it doesn't help you to go the right direction once in a while. It's important that you do it all the time. So that is the whole science of life and consciousness yoga and Ayurveda bring us. And very practical, very simple, and covering the whole of life from the qualities of foods and herbs to sleeping patterns to the highest meditational states. Hari Om.
You have, Vamadeva, you have a very beautiful book that I read. It's Ayurveda and the Mind. It's a very nice book. And also, I think we think that we don't have time, for example, for pranayama. We think that we can stay like, no, I don't have time to be breathing for I don't know how long. And actually, I started doing my pranayama and I'm doing it now like 300 breaths in 1 minute. It's like just like this. It's easy. And I feel so much better after my meditation or before the meditation, right? When I do my pranayama, I feel like light and very fresh and my mind is very clear. It's amazing. It's amazing. About Ayurvedic modern dietary considerations, Vamadeva, and the use of both Western and traditional Ayurvedic herbs.
Yes. Well, first I want to just make a comment about what you just said. People say they don't have time.
Yeah.
And the fact is we have a lot of time that we waste.
Yes.
And we have a lot of time in which we are distracted. And we have time to be entertained and time to worry, for all of that. And we must understand that all of our time is sacred and it's indispensable. You can't buy time. The wealthiest person in the world cannot buy time. We can get other people to do things for us. And even more so, right living, right thinking, right awareness gives you more time. If your mind is cluttered and emotional, you're not going to be able to make quick and clear decisions. If you make a wrong decision and go the wrong way, then you're going to have to come all the way back and start all over again. If you're not breathing properly, you'll lack vitality. You'll get tired. You'll be unable to have the proper circulation and immunity. You'll come down with colds or flus from the breakdown of the pranic circulation. So that's also going to weaken your time. If you sleep too late at night, or you have a disturbed sleep, or you don't get adequate rest, then you won't have the energy during the day to do what you need to do. So yoga and Ayurveda teach us how to optimize our time relative to our own biological rhythms and those of nature overall. Clock time is artificial, by the way. Biological time is measured by your breath. And even during the day, time is measured by the sun and, of course, the seasonal influences. And we renew ourselves through biological time. Chronological time, of course, causes more problems for us. So by right living, you will have more time, more energy, more creativity, and more intelligence. And you may also realize that a lot of the things you were doing were unnecessary, a waste of time, or harmful. And so we can gain a lot from these particular practices. Now we ask about the question also relative to dietary factors.
Yes.
And in the Yoga and Ayurveda, we teach you the importance of what you eat. Even Upanishads say that the essence of food builds up the mind. And of course, food is something more than just what we eat. We are taking in, through our prana, we are taking in food and beverages through the mouth, of course, but we're also breathing through the nose. We're taking in sensory impressions through the sense openings like eyes and the ears and the skin. And we're also taking in, with these sensory impressions, sounds, we're taking in emotions and ideas. So we have a whole set of intakes that are coming into our system. And we have a whole set of outputs that are coming out of it. If the energy we take in through food is used for exercise, movement, but it's also used for speaking, for thinking, for emotion, for so many things. So that it's important to understand that whole system involved. And the physical food is the main thing for grounding and stabilizing the physical body, which is our earth. You know, people today often talk about improving the ecology, which is very important, but take care of your own ecology too. If you're nice to the earth, but you're harmful to your body and eat bad food, you're violating your own ecosystem at a physical level. So proper food and beverages is important at a physical level for health and well-being. Of course, natural, organic, fresh water, juices, all these things we know is important. Freshly cooked, freshly picked as much as possible, avoiding the artificial. And at the same time, understanding qualities of foods, seasons of the year, and also our own constitution. You know, if you're a very hypersensitive, we say Vata dosha person, air element prevails, quickness in movement, a low body weight. You need a very grounding diet and food to stabilize you, as well as adequate rest and sleep. You can't live on the air. So these are the factors that Ayurveda teaches us, and yoga too. We're not all the same. I mean, we have an inner connection that's very similar, if not even the same at certain levels, but at a physical level, we have our differences and we have to adjust to the rhythms and cycles and age of our own body. And that's why Ayurveda has its doshic types and its different levels of treatment. And Ayurveda also teaches us that our main treatment methods beyond the food is, of course, herbal methods.
Yes.
And there are so many wonderful herbs in nature, whether it is all the different spices we have, whether it is so many healing herbs you have in every culture, every continent, and also specialties, beverages, all of that. Ayurveda also has special preparations, herbally, special oils, special confections, special herbal wines even. So these treatment methods should be borne in mind as well. We need our daily herbs. You know, herbs can help in our digestion, flavor the food. But if you have a cold, you can also benefit from your sages and your mints or your cinnamon and your ginger. If you have circulation issues, you have your turmeric and so many things. So Ayurveda brings in these considerations dietarily. And not only doshically, we consider guna. You know, you're also connected to Sattva in your organization. And there are certain forces of nature. So in terms of Sattva, we want food that has prana. We want food that's freshly cooked, that is cooked with positive intentions. We want to have the food in a relaxed way in which we have time to digest, in which we have a pleasant emotional environment and all of that. So the sattvic factors are there. That's why we generally, particularly for psychological issues, we recommend more vegetarian. We're not fanatics, but we generally say for calming the mind, vegetarian diet is preferable. Ayurveda does use dairy products, but Ayurveda also is very concerned with the proper care of the cow. In India, there are very special ways cows are raised and special natural breeds that are used for ghee and that are used for preparing special medicines. And we don't have a rule that everyone should avoid gluten or everyone should avoid this or that. It always varies by constitution. Some types may need to do so. And we also emphasize strengthening our Agni or digestive fire. It's an idea. It's sort of like we compare it to like your cook, the cook that prepares your food. If you're not nice to the cook, it's your food is not cooked properly. And we also say that for Agni or your digestive fire, not only the proper food, but the proper spices aids in the digestion involved. So we have to also consider our digestive power. So if we don't have proper diet, proper spices and herbs, and if we're involved with overwork, stress, emotional anxiety, the first thing is going to disturb is your digestive tract. nervous indigestion, all these things, ulcers, all these things come up. So, and when you have these problems with your power of digestion, then you can't digest this, you have allergies here, heavy foods, whether it's nuts, whether it's gluten, whether it's dairy, whether it's soy, you can't handle because your fire is too weak to do these things. So we not only look at the food qualities, we also look at the quality of your digestive fire, right timing, having your main meal at noon or in the early afternoon, not taking heavy, greasy, hot food before you go to sleep at night. They're not taking a lot of soft drinks, cold drinks. I mean, there's common sense here, but we do need a dietary wisdom to bring ourselves back to health. There are other related things, the science of nutrition, their food combinations, their dietary needs, fiber, protein. All these things need to be considered, but the doshic factors, the agni factors, the pranic factors, we say that there's a force called samanavayu, or the balancing factor of prana. It balances the body from the navel center, but it also helps balance the digestive system. So when we are stressed, overworked, emotionally disturbed, that balance of the prana goes out in the navel center. You can feel it. You can put your hand there and see how much balance you have there. And that will take the digestion off. So we also have to see how the mind affects things as well. And vice versa. If we aren't grounded with proper diet and proper nutrition and proper rest, then the mind gets disturbed, just as someone who is starving can't think properly. And many people forget to eat. They don't eat properly. They don't eat the right items. They eat quickly. And so issues are there. So the dietary considerations are important, but they are part of a lifestyle as a whole. You also have to have proper exercise, being out in nature, proper breathing, so you're digesting your prana, proper sensory impressions, so you're digesting the sensory impressions that come in, proper emotions. If you're around people who are upset, then you get emotionally disturbed and you don't digest emotions. You go to sleep and you're emotionally upset all night long. So you have to learn to digest the emotions, digest the thoughts. And ultimately, we have to have an inner sense of peace, contentment, observation, so that we are honoring how nature works and we are using our ecosystem with respect and properly. That is our body and mind, rather than just running after what the social world wants. Many people will weaken their bodies, disturb their minds in the pursuit of success in the social world. We have a beautiful social image, but our body's suffering, our minds are suffering. So let's remember who we are. The image on the outside is an expression. We also need to nourish who we are, which is the body and mind as connected to our inner self overall. Hariom.
Hariom, Vamadeva. Our last question, my last question, Vamadeva. You integrate Ayurveda with the practice of yoga, meditation, and the spiritual approach of the Vedas. You are regarded as one of the most experienced Ayurveda acharyas, or a master of Ayurveda teachers in the world today. And because you talk about integrating these practices, can you talk about the importance of meditation in our everyday life?
Yes, meditation. It's very interesting. We have such a complex educational system in the world with all of our universities at various levels, tremendous technological knowledge in physics and medicine, even in other aspects of life. And yet we're not teaching anyone how to control the mind, how to meditate, how to have power of attention, how to have steadiness of observation. We of course do encourage, students to, be dedicated to their work and that sort of thing. But there's no real study of things like meditation, particularly from an early age. You might find it as an unusual class or something you might learn on the side. And yet, the most important thing in life is our state of awareness. And of course, the state of awareness is connected to the mind, but it is something more than the mind. Mind, we're more concerned with the thoughts that are going on in the mind. And yoga teaches us something very interesting, which we forget. The mind is not you. The mind is on the outside. Your thoughts are on the outside. Now, and the body is on the outside. They are closer to you than, of course, objects in the external world. But body and mind are instruments of a deeper consciousness. They are not in themselves self-aware. You go to sleep at night and forget the body and the mind. Consciousness goes on. So what this means is that we also need to know how to cultivate a deeper awareness, direct perception, direct experience, power of observation. And it also means we need to know how to calm the mind. And in this regard, we overwork the mind, particularly today, because we are so filled with endless stimulation. It may be entertainment, it may be work, it may be politics, so many things. Let's compare it with the muscles. You have to rest the muscles. You can't use your arm muscles 24 hours a day. So there needs to be an inner rest to renew the mind and to renew the prana. There is one place we all normally get that, which is the state of deep sleep. That is getting disrupted for many of us. But at the same time, in meditation, we have a process where we can renew the mind, but we can also strengthen this power of attention, awareness. Now, what's very interesting is there are different rules for renewing the mind. For example, the mind is renewed where there is silence, where there is space. Go out on a high mountain and look over the valley. The mind gets naturally renewed by the space. So an inner healing comes from inaction or doing less. Even yoga, slowing down activity, asanas, slowed down, stopping. Pranayamas, deepening, slowing down the breath. Mantra, you're deepening, slowing down the thought process. So by deepening and slowing down the mind through meditation, we develop more power to the mind. We develop a greater power of attention. If you're distracted, you can't do anything. You can't accomplish anything you're doing if your mind is distracted, right? An attentive mind can do anything better than an unattentive mind. And yet most of the time we are distracted. And if your attention is rooted on the outside, it's a distraction of sorts in the sense that you're not seeing what's going on in your own mind. So meditation is a tool then of developing deeper attention, awareness, and focus. There are techniques of meditation that can help you, but they are not in themselves meditation by itself. So it's very important that we bring this meditation into our lives, and meditation is the foundation of what we say is a meditative life, which means calm, harmony, peace of mind. See, mainly in life, we are just constantly on the run, disturbed, distracted, busy.
Yes.
Successful, maybe even does that to us. But we have to remember, as an organic being, take breathing. You need inhalation, retention, exhalation. The body needs activity. Muscles need to be flexed. They also need to be relaxed. And we need recreation, relaxation. And so the mind needs that meditation. And we need to know how to observe. If you are in a situation, detached observation is the first thing that you need. If you come into a meeting immediately talking and shouting and interacting and presenting this and that, you have to take the time to see what is going on, who are the people, what is the context, what is required. What yoga teaches us is that there are different challenges at every moment. I'd like to define yoga as moment by moment awareness. You have to be aware to see what is going on. In society, now we have new challenges we didn't have a year ago. We can't just react according to the patterns of the past. And we may not know immediately. We need to take time to observe, to see, to understand different points of view. And we need some degree of detachment. If I have a vested interest that this has to work or not, then I'm not going to be objective and detached. So learning is possible when we have a full power of attention. And that's why there's so many attention problems today, because you're distracted by media, by equipment. The poor children today, the mind imitates its environment. So if you're looking at a cell phone all day long, your mind becomes a cell phone. You start thinking like a cell phone. You think you can Google something and find the answer. You don't need to know. And meditation is a way of connecting to nature. In fact, best way to learn meditation, go out in nature, contemplate. You can walk, just kind of hike if you need to still the body, find a nice place to sit, look at the clouds, look at the sky, the ocean, the waters. It's a way of becoming one with things, learning the beauty of seeing, and we say being present, being at peace. Being itself brings about transformation. If you're just one with things, you have a tremendous pranic force that comes in. So meditation should be part of how we live, particularly first thing in the morning and last thing before we go to sleep at night. Before we go to sleep at night, the meditation helps us clear away all the negativity, the emotions, the sensations, the electronic stimulation. We use mantra, pranayama to help us move into meditation, different forms of inquiry, introspection. Who am I? Search for our inner self. We let the world go every night. We don't carry the burden of the world with us when we sleep. I always tell the students that the world will be there in the morning. Don't worry, you don't have to carry it with you. In any case, it's not going to go away. But you need to have the space to renew yourself, then you can deal with the world better. Similarly, in the morning, you need to make sure you have an open, detached mind, connect to the forces of nature, your breath, the sky, natural food, all these different things. Have a positive intention for the day. What I hope I will learn today, I will become more peaceful. I will become a better person. I will make the world a better place. Ground yourself in some higher intention. If you get up in the morning all disturbed, active, jump around, in a rush, then a few hours later, you have a moment, you sit down, you say, okay, gosh, now let me put my mind at rest. You can't. I tell people, the train has already left the station. The train leaves the station the first thing in the morning. If you wait until you're on the train for 2 or 3 hours to say, well, I want to change my direction, it's too late. So we need to understand the importance of meditation. And during the day, off and on, clear the mind, let things go. And remember that an open mind is better. There's so many opinions out there. Their eyes look at it, the eyes have a different location and space that they're seeing. They have different education. They have different beliefs, ideas. Language is different. News is different every day. So there'll be differences going on there. Let them be. But if we have a meditative mind, then we can do what is necessary in a particular context. There are no absolute rules in life. You have to adjust to the circumstance. I mentioned that when it's cold, you put on a coat. When it's warm, you take a coat off. You can't say, as a rule, you always wear coats. There's certain things you do during the day. There's certain things you do during the night. You plant things in the spring. You don't plant things when the winter is coming in unless you live in the tropics or something like that. You have to understand the person who's there with you at this moment. You can't say, I always do this with people. Some people need to be prodded. Some people need to be comforted. Mostly we just need to let people be who they are and express what it is that they need or that they are doing. And we make whatever adjustments that are going on. Just as when you go outside, you have to see the weather. You have to know where the wind is blowing. You don't say, well, the wind, you're wrong. Today you should be blowing in this direction. You have no right blowing in another direction. So we have to understand the context. And the context, all context, we have to aim at harmonization and balance, but in different circumstances, different energies, different actions may be required, or even inaction may be required. So meditation helps us with that, and activity is necessary. Sometimes I tell people that the best yoga asana, yoga practice is hiking in nature. Why? Because the physical movement is a natural asana or vinyasa. The physical movement brings about a certain pranayama. The breath is deepening in nature. There's a natural pratyahara through all the sensory impressions of nature coming to you, the trees, the clouds, the sky. And then you naturally become attentive. You naturally become meditative. At the same time, we do have to learn the art of sitting silently. Why are people so disturbed now when they can't leave their homes? If you knew how to meditate, you would be able to handle the pandemic better. And not only that, a meditative mind will empty the mind. So the mind isn't filled with clutter. Most of us haven't emptied our mind in a long time. So when we sit down and have the mind, we're alone with ourselves, all the clutter, all the garbage, the memories, whatever emotional disturbances come up. Very few people, if you put people in a cave, if you put people even in a room to have to live with your mind. Why is it you can't live with your own mind? It's your mind. Isn't that a certain mistake in your behavior that you can't live with your own mind? If you can't live with your own mind, who can live with your mind? Or what mind can you live with? So meditation helps us bring about that emotional cleansing and purification. For example, we bathe every day. We take care of the dirt off the body, but we can also accumulate emotional toxins just as we can accumulate physical toxins. Meditation gives us the space to release them and let them go, or we can use pranayama to aid in letting them go, exhaling, letting all these negative emotions go, or just relaxing, moving the energy out. So this is important for inner healing. And again, remember, inner healing is simple. Space, solitude, attention, introspection, contemplation, breathing, silence, all these things. Of course, we need the rest as well, but that inner dimension should be there. And that is what Yoga, Ayurveda, Vedanta emphasizes. And then, we can finish with this ultimate truth of Vedanta. Vedanta is the philosophy behind yoga and Ayurveda. It's the philosophy of unity. It says that your individual being, you could say individual self, but we mean not just the physical person or even the social person, but your inner being, your inner awareness is one with the entire universe, the universal being. You are all pervading like space. You are eternal. You are infinite. Your nature is light. Your nature is space. You can have so many bodies and so many worlds, but you are eventually at an inner core level, one with all. You hold the entire universe within you. That is why your body and mind work with the forces of the universe. And you can balance those universal forces within you, but centering yourself in your own inner being, your own spiritual heart, your own higher awareness. That is the way of having that transcendent connection, moving beyond the kind of localized physical limitations so that you can experience the wholeness, the totality, the unity in what we do. Of course, it won't happen every instant. We have our ups and downs, but we all have that sense of connection with nature, with the divine, with other people, with unity, love, devotion, all these things. So we also want to bring that higher knowledge into play. It's not just a matter of information, it's a matter of being aware. Highest knowledge is not simply having a lot of information. Information can even confuse you. There's no end to it. Highest knowledge is to see and to be and to understand yourself, the non-quantitative, what is beyond a name, form, and a number. What is the essential quality, light, essence of your being, your awareness, what allows you to find joy, happiness, what allows you to share wisdom, love, which allows you to feel one with nature, one with other human beings. This is where yoga and Ayurveda take us, but they do so by helping us harmonize every aspect of our life, whether it's exercise, whether it's food, whether it's breathing, whether it's herbs, medicine, psychology, philosophy, the social world, our work, all these different things we should do as part of a higher consciousness. And when we do, then the benefic forces of the universe will also support us, and we can help bring harmony, healing, peace, and well-being into our turbulent world. In spite of the difficulties we may have to face, we also have the whole universe that can aid us in a higher awareness and a higher sense of well-being. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Vamadeva. It's amazing to hear you. And, you know, in 2002, I had a very sad experience. And when you were talking about meditation, I remember that after 2 years that we had that experience, we had the opportunity to go to Italy and live in Italy. And I had the ocean, I had the sea in front of me, and every day I will go and walk. And that would be my meditation at 6 o'clock in the morning. For 3 years and a half, I did that. And it was a healing process. It was amazing how I felt. And after, because I didn't know why I was doing that. Every day I would go and I would walk and I would meditate and I would cry and I will do everything over there. I will sit, I will just look at the ocean. But after a while, I realized how I clean, how I heal with that in time. It was amazing. It was amazing for me. And it was a meditation with movement, but still it was there and it helped me. It helped me so much.
Water absorbs quite a bit. The rivers, the ocean, the lakes. Mind is like water at a deeper level. So we can also let it take that. And fact is, just let it go. There's nothing that we need. If we have an emotional issue, we're holding on to it at a certain level. And what I found is that it's often harder for us to let go of our grief and sorrow than to just, let go of what is positive. So let it go. And you don't have to hold on to it. And whatever happened in the past is gone. Don't go backwards in time. It's not going to take you anywhere. Don't dig your hole. Don't dig a hole in the ground. Let it go, because you can change. The future has many potentials, and above all, we live in an ocean of presence. Actually, there's no past, there's no future. What we say is that, to go back to the ocean, time is like an ocean. The waves of time rise and fall, but we always remain. Your inner being, your inner awareness remains. Waves come and go, but you are there. So hold to that presence and let the waves go, rise and fall, and you can have harmony and well-being wherever you are.
Vamadeva, thank you very much for sharing all your wisdom with everybody who watches Entre Nous and to share with the world. Thank you, Vamadeva, for your life. Thank you for this interview. Thank you for everything. And I hope this is the first one of many. Thank you. I'm so honored to have you here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. It's been a great, wonderful experience for me. And I send my best wishes to all who watch this. And let us all come together at a deeper level. Media is a doorway, but let's come together at an inner level of the heart as well.
Yeah, and you were telling me before I say goodbye to our viewers, you said that you have also Ayurveda in Spanish, right? At the American Institute of Vedic Studies?
Actually, no, it's at lubrano.com, Lubrano.com, Aldo Lubrano. And he has the Ayurvedic healing course in Spanish. He's also a psychologist, by the way. He's
I was reading about it.
And he's been back and forth living in New York and also in Mexico.
Yeah.
We also have it in Portuguese, though.
Yeah.
But that is through our friends in Brazil there, Swami Narayanananda, Dr. Jose Ruge. So we have in some different languages, English, but our website, we only have the English, but you have to know today that you can get these translation programs.
Yes.
And so we have students who take the course, English course in different languages, and they have used the translation program to help them along with it. And we have a number of books in Spanish, by the way.
Yes.
I don't remember what all the titles are, but there are a fair amount of them, and in Portuguese a few.
Here in Chile, you are very well known, and most of the people who are taking Ayurvedic instruction, right? They have like subjects with your books, and you are well known here. And I hope one day you can come to Chile. We will be so happy to have you here.
Well, I would be happy to come. I've been to Brazil quite a bit, though not this last year or two. So you're not far away. And we also, besides Ayurveda, we also have courses on the Ayurveda, on the astrology, Jyotish, Vedic counseling, yoga and Ayurveda. And even besides our books on our website, we have over 200 articles that if you just want to just go through articles on these different topics, that are available for you. Again, you can find translation programs if you need them. But we do, and we feel that South America has a great future. And we've also been through a little bit of Argentina and all of that. It's a wonderful continent that is there. A lot of the future of humanity is there. So again, best wishes to all of you. And let us continue our inner dialogues through the ultimate communication power of inner silence. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Hari Om. Namaste. Muchísimas gracias. Esta ha sido la entrevista con el doctor David Frawley, Vamadeva. A mí solamente me resta agradecerle y agradecerles a todos ustedes por su atención. Muchísimas gracias. Namaste.